All right. So let's get started. All right, can everyone see my screen? Oh, I'm not muted, right? You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Oh. Julie, do you have it installed, or are you just waiting to open it, or do you need to install it still?
I gotta install it, my bad.
Okay. Well, fair warning, it is going to take a couple hours, so I don't know if you'll feel the
Hours? Oh, my fault.
No,
Okay.
it's okay.
I'll watch.
Yeah, and I am recording it, so
Okay.
always just watch it back and follow along next time.
Mhm.
And just feel free to reach out to me on Slack, or probably that's about it.
Okay.
If you have any questions. Yeah, all right, so we're gonna get started. When you open SolidWorks for the first time, I don't know, what do you guys see? Do you guys see like a blank screen? Do you have a window that pops up? I know it's different for different people based on your version. Taylor, what do you have pop up?
Yeah, something similar to that.
Similar to this? Is it
It's
just,
just like all blank because I haven't done anything.
oh, is it all blank like this?
It has like the everything in the new in the resources part.
Gotcha. So this guy here, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that's kind of what it's going to look like when you open it for the first time, just because you don't have any recent documents yet, because you haven't used it yet. Um, in SolidWorks, there's really three types of files you can work on. So your first one's your part. That's just going to be making your individual pieces. Then you have assemblies. That's where you could take a bunch of pieces, put them together to make like, well, an assembly. So like, for example, if we're working on Robot Cat, we might make the wheel as a part, but then the drive chassis, like the whole thing, that would probably be an assembly because you'd have multiple parts going into that. And then you have your drawings. That would be taking a part or an assembly and just showing how you're making it. So it'll give you a bunch of dimensions to show you how to machine it, or maybe it gives directions on how to assemble it if it's an assembly. So whenever you guys are going to John about machining or anything like that, or maybe there's a student who's doing machining, um, they might want a drawing. I'm not entirely sure how that's all going to be working next year, but now that we have the capabilities, that might be something that we start trying to do. Having people make drawings. We'll be covering these two later on. We're going to be mostly just sticking to parts though for the first couple weeks. So just click on part, and the screen won't change too much. It's just going to be replaced with a blank white screen instead. All right. This is what my screen looks like now. Taylor, yours looks similar?
It's like loading right now.
Yeah, no worries. It can take a little bit.
Did
Just
you want like, the
oh.
inches, pounds, and seconds?
Yes, that window. Yes. So,
Okay. I
all
did
right,
that.
hold on. I'm gonna do a quick screen share thing. I'm assuming you have something that looks kind of like this, where you have your units and your dimension standard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So units, we're gonna want to do inch, pound, second. Just because in the US in general, those are the units we use. Um, I've heard of people using the millimeter gram second one, but for our purposes, we're going to stick to inches because I think that's what everyone's the most comfortable with. And I know for certain that John doing machining, he's probably going to be wanting everything in inches. So we'll stick to the inch, pound, second. And for dimension standard, make sure you're in ANSI, ANSI, not ISO.
I should check. It just like needs to load first.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joey gave me a laptop as of right now, so it's a little slow.
Yeah, no worries. My laptop's pretty quick with it, but that's just because I made sure to get a laptop that could for engineering and stuff. But it is a big program, so it can be definitely tough on some laptops. So um, yeah, just let me know. Were you able to do the units and stuff? So
Um, I'm getting that up right now.
cool. All right. Yeah, let me know if you need help with anything.
Seems good.
All right, cool. And you were able to set up the units and the dimension thing, right?
How do I go back to that
Yeah,
actually?
no worries. So here, I'll show you on, let's see, share screen, swap screen, share. All right, so you have this up, right? Something like this, or just
Yeah.
link. All right, so what you can do is you have your little gear up here on top. See where my mouse is?
Yeah.
Your classic settings button. So when you click that, you should get a bunch of settings that come up. Yeah. And right now we're in system options. You can kind of see what the tabs. We want to go over to document properties. And now for some reason, my computer defaults to having it be ISO, which I don't like. But what you can do here is your first option is drafting standard, which is our ANSI or ISO. So see how mine's ISO? I can do the drop downs over to ANSI.
Okay.
Mine defaults to that. It's really frustrating, but I don't know how to fix it. I'll probably figure it out someday. And then if you look down a little bit on this little sidebar, you'll see that we also have units. And that, luckily, it defaults to IPS for me.
Okay.
And that's all you have to do for that.
Okay. Thank you.
And then with units, we'll kind of talk about this a little bit later, but what's really nice is in this bottom right-hand corner, you can just swap between units whenever you want during the part. And what it'll do is it'll just convert everything over. So let's say you have this part that maybe came from somewhere in Europe, so everything's in millimeters. You can measure it in millimeters and make it here. And then if you just swap your units back to inches, it'll convert all the units for you, which is really, really nice. All right, so you ready to get started on the first part, Taylor?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so here's kind of to break everything down. So this thing up here, tons of options. The main ones we'll be working in are literally just going to be features and sketch. Those are pretty much the only two we'll ever really be touching. I'll probably mention evaluate, but other than that, like, you can pretty much do SolidWorks just fine with just these two. You know, that's really how you're making everything. So whenever you're making a part in SolidWorks, have you ever done like CAD stuff before, Taylor?
I've done some basics with Fusion.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know how much, but you know how like you usually have to start with your 2D sketch first and then you can make it 3D basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing in SolidWorks. So what we do is we'll click over to the sketch tab here in this ribbon. And then top left corner, you'll see this little sketch guide come up. And if we click on it, that's how we start a new sketch. And as soon as we click it, it's going to ask us what plane we want to sketch on. We're just going to make a cube to start. So it doesn't matter what plane we pick, but I'll just click top plane. And what that's basically going to do is it's going to make, that's the surface we're drawing on. So if you're making a part that you want to be sideways, you might have it be on the right plane. But you know, that's kind of just up to you. But yeah, we'll click top plane and yeah, let me know when you're in the sketch.
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. So once you're in the sketch, you'll be able to start drawing lines and stuff. Since we're just doing a cube, the only one we really need is our rectangle here. But these are all the different lines you can make in a sketch. So you have your standard lines, you can make a circle, this thing called a spline, which is really cool because they give you animations of how each one works. Spline is almost like free drawing a curve. Circles make circles, then you have your rectangles, then you have your arcs, which basically make like part of a circle. You have your ellipses, which are just ovals. Then I don't really use straight slot much. That's if you wanted to make some sort of circular slot. Polygons are going to be really nice if you guys ever want to do anything with like hex shaft, like hex cutouts, because you can basically draw any polygon you want. And you would just say how many sides you want it to have. In sketch fillet, I don't use much. Points are nice if you want to plot a point yourself, but since we're just doing a cube, we'll just use our rectangle here. So we're just going to click on corner rectangle. And you'll notice that a lot of these have drop-down icons next to them. And those are just different ways we could draw them. And they kind of mention them here as well, where we could either do a 2-corner rectangle. That's what we'll do here, where you basically do one corner and then another. Or you could define your center first and then do a corner. And there's a bunch of different options to make all these different shapes, which is really nice. But we'll just do a quick corner one. So you just click our first point, click a second point, and boom, now we have a rectangle. And to get out of the rectangle drawing mode, it'll keep you in whatever mode you're in. You could either hit escape on your keyboard or you can hit this check mark. It'll do the same thing. But yeah.
Okay.
Good so far?
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, this is one thing I really like about SolidWorks. They have a really nice, just clear icon for dimensioning. It's right next to your sketch button. And notice that our sketch button turned into an exit sketch. That's kind of how you know you're in a sketch. So if you're ever like, because when you're working on parts and you're going back and forth editing stuff, you kind of forget if you're in a sketch or if you're in features. If you see this exit sketch thing pop up, you know you're in a sketch. And also you'll see these two little icons here. What they do is they also are basically exit sketch. And if you see these, you know you're in a sketch. This one up here is basically, I want to leave the sketch, but save my changes. This one's, I want to leave the sketch and don't save my changes, just so you know. So generally what you want to use this, if you click this by accident, it kind of stinks sometimes because then you lost all your work. But sometimes you'll make a mistake in your sketch and you're like, you know what, I just want a clean slate. You can hit the X and just start over, which is nice. So since we're making a square, we're going to start with dimensioning. So you just click this guy over here, and you just click on your line basically that you want to dimension. And right now it's 2.72 inches. I'm going to just make a 2x2, 2 cube first. So we'll want to start with a 2x2 square. One thing to notice, see how some of our lines are black and some of them are blue?
All of them blue for me.
All of yours are blue. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, but let me just.
I don't know. That's not an issue on you. I think I know what happened. See how there's this little origin thing here with like the two arrows?
Yeah.
Is your rectangle corner touching it or no?
Yeah. Oh, that's probably it.
It is touching it or no?
It is. Okay, I just moved it over now.
Okay. Well, when you're doing a sketch, you usually want to have at least one of your points touching the origin because the black lines basically mean this line is fixed. It can't move. We've kind of fully defined it. So in the case of this line, right, since we know this corner here is touching this, and notice we'll kind of cover relations later, but the computer kind of assumed we want it to be vertical, which is nice. Same thing here. So these are called fixed lines. They can't move if they're black. Blue ones, though, they can move, right? Like this one can move up and down because we never said how long this line is. Then this one can move back and forth for the same reason. We never said how long this one is. But now notice if we dimension this line here and set it to 2 inches, well, all of a sudden this line is now black because it's fully defined. We can't move it anymore because if we tried to move it, this line would be longer than 2 inches, which we can't have. Does that kind of make sense?
That makes sense.
Cool. So it's almost like, you know, you're adding enough rules where the sketch is definitely doing what you want to do. And it is best practice. Try to have it when you're doing a sketch, even if everything's where you want it to be. Add dimensions, and later on we'll cover relations. But for now, like, make sure everything is all your lines are black. You don't want to have any blue ones because that means that, you know, there might just be something you're not accounting for. So in general, it's best practice to try to have everything be fully defined. So what I'm going to do is set that one to 2 inches as well. And remember, it keeps you in that mode. So I just hit escape on my keyboard to get rid of it. And another thing, notice all my lines are black, but also down here on my corner, it says fully defined. That's how I know all my lines are fully defined. It just straight up tells you, which is really nice. Are you here with me still?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to make this a cube. So there's two different ways to do it. I'll show you both. So you don't have to follow along for now because I'm just going to show both real quick. And then you can just choose whichever one you want to do. So the first one is while we're still in the sketch, you can click over to the features tab and see extruded boss / base. That's the one we want to do. That basically just takes our 2D object and just, you know, expands it out and kind of gives you a nice animation for it. So I can stay in the sketch, click over to features and click extrude boss base. And it'll have a bunch of options. Now, the first one is from. This is basically saying, where's your object starting? Now, right now it's in the sketch plane. So where we sketched the object, we're just expanding it out. But what's interesting is you can choose other spots to extrude it off of. It's kind of weird, but it can be useful, but we won't go into a ton of detail on that. The other thing it'll ask you about is how far do you want it to go? Now, the common default option, it's called blind, which isn't super intuitive as to what it means, but blind basically just means I am giving it a length basically, and it will extrude it to that length. So if I say blind, it's going to tell me to put in a dimension. And if I hit 2, it is going to extrude it exactly 2 inches. But there's a couple other things you can do if you ever wanted to, like up to vertex would basically mean I'm extruding it up to a point. So maybe I'm trying to make, you know, I'm trying to make like a beam that's going to go up to like like an object, and I want it to touch it, so it's offering support. Well, I can click up to vertex, click on the thing I want it to go up to, and it'll just automatically extrude it all the way up to there. But we'll stick the blind for now, and we'll just say extrude it 2 inches. Check, and boom, now I have a cube. All right. Now, let's say I want to do it the other way. So I'll kind of explain how I did that in a sec. But the other thing you can do, I'm going to re-enter the sketch. The other thing you can do is you can hit exit sketch. You can either use this button or this button up here. And then once you exit your sketch, now this thing down here, this is called your feature tree, where you have your list of just a bunch of stuff. And we have our sketch 1. That's the sketch we just made. I know Fusion has something similar, but it looks a little different. But if we click sketch 1 and then click features, we can do the same thing. So you can basically choose to do your extrudes while you're still in your sketch, or you can wait, close out your sketch, and then do the extrudes. It does the same thing. And yeah, and you can kind of see it gives you a nice little preview of what it's going to look like. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and try it for yourself, and let me know how it goes for you. You could really use either option. They do the exact same thing. And then kind of just let me know when you're ready, and we'll keep going. Yeah, and please let me know if you have any questions, or if there's maybe something I glossed over that you want more details on, because yeah. Because even if it's something I'm not mentioning yet, I might mention it later and we can cover it earlier, or, you know, like I know last week it was just me, Aaron, and Eddie, and Aaron was asking a lot of good questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to just let me know.
Yeah, I believe I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, cool. All right, so now we have a cube. So first, before we do anything else, let's save it, right? Just so we can kind of save our work. Because with SolidWorks, it's a big program, right? I know like at work, I do a lot of SolidWorks, and sometimes I'll have like too many tabs open and SolidWorks will just crash because it's just taking up, it's making my computer work too hard. So it's a really good idea to save your stuff every once in a while. So what we'll do is we'll save it. So you go up to your save icon here, and it'll basically just ask you, kind of the same as saving literally any other file, where you have to give it a name, you have to pick where you want it to go. I've kind of set up a bit of a folder for all of the things I make for this class, but you can really put it anywhere. But yeah, we're just going to save it for now. So just figure out somewhere where you want it to be, give it a name. I'm just naming mine lesson 1 cube, just so I'm kind of planning on sharing this folder with everyone once I'm done with all the lessons. So if anyone doesn't take notes, but these parts are going to be a good way to take notes because you can always just reopen them, see how you made the part. And yeah, so let me know when you're all set with that, and then we'll go on to the next part.
Okay, all set.
All set? Awesome. All right. So I kind of want to take a little bit more of a look as far as, because we did a lot of stuff. We made our part, but I'd like to kind of go over this part area because there's a lot of like buttons and options and stuff. And the reason why I didn't cover them yet is because we didn't have a part yet. And, you know, it's a lot easier to kind of look through it once you have something to look at. So as far as moving around in here, I'm sure you've noticed I've been doing some spinning around a bit. The way you spin objects, you hold down your mouse wheel and it lets you just rotate stuff around, basically. Rotating stuff, this is called free drag. Rotating stuff with the free drag in SolidWorks is kind of weird, as you'll kind of learn. It's a little funky. A couple other things you can do. If you do hold control while doing mouse wheel, you can pan, so you can kind of like drag your object around. So hold control and then mouse wheel, you can drag it around, which is kind of nice.
How would I do this on a laptop? instead.
you're doing this on a laptop?
Yeah.
Oh man, all right. I would highly recommend trying to find yourself a mouse at some point because some of this will get a little difficult. I'm okay, that's actually a really good question. I'm not sure. I can show you how to rotate with just without a mouse wheel, but yeah, SolidWorks a mouse wheel is really nice to have. So we can kind of skip that for now, but just for anyone who's for the recording, the other thing you can do is shift mouse wheel, and it looks like that zooms stuff in now. But here's the other way you can rotate stuff. If you hit your space bar, kind of zooms out and you almost get like a die, like a dice around it. Kind of see that?
Yeah.
Cool. And all you need to do now is if you click on any of these faces, it'll just turn the object to face in that direction. So if I click this one, now I'm looking at it from that direction. If I hit space again, I can do something else. And you also see how we have this little orientation menu up here, where I could also select it here. So I can maybe choose to look at it on the front, bottom. We made a cube, so it's going to be hard to tell all the views apart. But once we add more stuff to it, it might be a bit more interesting. Were you able to get the space thing to work?
Yeah, I was.
Awesome. All right. So let's do this then. Let's make our cube a little bit more funky. So we'll add some stuff to it. So first, I'm just going to have it face the front now. Now, let's say I wanted to just cut off one of the corners, right? There's a couple ways we could do it, and we have a bunch of corners, so we can try cutting it off in different ways. So do you have any ideas on how we can maybe have the corner be cut off? Any thoughts? All right. Well, there's two ways that I can think of at least. So the first one, so remember this thing that I mentioned, the feature tree? Well, remember how we had the sketch here originally? Well, now it says boss extrude, which is our cube. And if I hit this drop down, I can see my sketch. Are you following?
Yes.
Awesome. So, and what's really nice about SolidWorks is because when you make a sketch and you extrude it, you can still edit the sketch, which is really, really nice. So one thing we can do with this, if we wanted to cut off a corner, we could go back into the sketch and change our sketch a little bit to make it have a cut off corner. So what we can do is we can click this little drop down, and what we can do is right click on sketch and then hit edit sketch. Let me know if you're here.
I don't see the edit sketch.
You don't see
I
the
see it.
edit sketch? So are
Yeah,
you on sketch or you did the drop down, right?
I did the drop down.
Cool. And were you able to right click on sketch and did you have this kind of pop up?
Yeah.
It should be the top left option. Like the little icon up here. If you want, you could try alt tabbing to zoom. I have it up on my screen. I've been screen sharing, so I don't know if that'll help.
I don't know why I don't see that.
But you don't have, do you have any of what I have up, or is it?
I have above the feature sketch one, zoom to selection and normal to. Would I need to exit the sketch? Because I'm
Oh, you
in
just have these two here, zoom to selection and normal too?
oh, I have it now. I had to exit the sketch.
Oh, yes. Yeah, if you're in a sketch, you're gonna have totally different options. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I remember how I was saying, like sometimes you'll forget if you're in a sketch or not. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you'll be like clicking on, I did this literally at work today where I was trying to like edit a sketch, but like not the one I was in, and I'm like, why is it not letting me go into this sketch? And it's because I was already in one. And so yeah, that happens. So but you can do the edit sketch now, right? It comes up now when you do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, perfect. Yeah, no, that totally happens. I don't know about you, but since I was facing the front it's now like I can't see it anymore because it's just a flat line. I just have to change my view of it. So if I click to look at it from the top, it gives me like a little preview, which is nice. And if I click to view it from the top, now it looks like the sketch I made originally. You got to hear just fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're good?
Mm-hmm.
If you're stuck, just let me know. So let's try cutting off a corner. And there's a couple things we could do. We could try like deleting this square. So here, I'll kind of show you a couple. So let's try the easiest way. So I don't know how much you did fusion, but let's say I added. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the line option, and I'm just going to make a line that goes across one of the corners. I don't know if you're able to see what I just did, but I just made a quick line there. Let me know when you have the line down.
Yeah, I have it.
Cool. And notice it's blue because we haven't given it any dimensions. So when you're dimensioning diagonal lines, what we can do is we can click on the line first, right? With our smart dimension tool. And you can kind of see if we drag it away, it's giving us the length of the line, right? And sometimes that's what you want. Maybe I want this to be a 1-inch line. But what the other things you could do is if you drag it straight down like this, you see it gives you how long it is, but only in the X direction, or how long it is in the horizontal direction.
Yeah.
Really, if you drag it all the way to the left, like straight sideways, it'll tell you basically how tall it is, which is kind of cool. You're able to do that?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess we could really pick any of them. Do whatever you want. I'm gonna have it be, I think I'm gonna do the X direction one. I'm gonna do the wide one, and I'm gonna make it point 0.6 wide. We'll just do that for now. Yeah, I'll just do that. And notice it's still not fully defined because look, it could still be as tall as we want it to be. So we haven't really given it any rules that way. You're following?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now what we can do is we can either also dimension the height, but we can also try something a little bit different. The other thing you could dimension in SolidWorks, you also could dimension angles. So if we click on our diagonal line and then one of the lines on the square, it'll give us the angle between them. Just with how I drew mine, I did it between the diagonal line and the top surface of the square, the top line. And I have an angle of 39 degrees, but depending on how you drew your line, it could be anything. But yeah, you can also dimension angles, which is really, really cool. I'm going to put mine in as 30 degrees. That's a nice even angle. And now we can kind of see my lines fully defined. Let me know if you're all set or if you have any questions.
Could you do that again? I didn't really see.
Yeah, the angle one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go to Smart Dimension, same as normal. And what you do is we're going to click on our clicked on a point. My bad. I'm going to click on the diagonal line again. You can kind of see it wants me to do another one of those dimensions again. But what I can choose to do instead is I can select a different line now. So I'm going to choose the top one, and it's going to give me the angle between them. And it's 30 degrees. Because that's what I had set it to previously. Let me know if you're all set or if you have any other questions. Were you able to get it to work?
I'm in the middle of doing that right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no rush. I just want to make sure you're not stuck.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Awesome. And just so you know, kind of while we're in here, we can mess around with some other dimensions. So if you ever want to change a dimension, all you have to do is just double click on where the number is, and it'll give you a little pop-up, at which point you could change it. So I just clicked on the height dimension of our whole square. I had it at 2 before. If I want, I can just set it to 3 and hit enter, and it'll do it automatically for me, which is really nice. So if you wanted to just double click on a dimension, you can always edit it, change it to whatever you want. Another thing you can do, which is really useful, is remember how I kind of mentioned, like if you're measuring in other units, you can, convert the whole thing. Another thing you can do though, oh, sorry, did you see something? All right, I'll just keep going. One thing you can do is say you wanted this to be 4 centimeters tall. What you could also do is you could put in 4 centimeters. So what I could do is hit 4 and then cm for centimeters. And if I hit enter, it'll automatically convert it over to inches because that's what my drawing's in, which is pretty cool. Yeah, if you wanted to try those out. But the other thing you can do with dimensions that I didn't really mention much, because we mostly just dimensioned how long we wanted the line to be. The other thing you can do with dimensions, so I just deleted my dimension on my bottom line, it told me how wide my rectangle was. Instead of clicking on how long I want this line to be, another thing you can do, which does the same thing in this case, I can choose how far apart I want 2 lines to be. So I can click on this line here, and then this line here, and then set that dimension to be 2. And it obviously it's the same thing in this case, but you don't necessarily have to choose how long you want a line to be. You can choose how far apart 2 things should be. You have a lot of options when you're doing your dimensioning. Are we all set?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit exit sketch. And it's going to give me an error. And the reason why it gave me an error is because notice how before when we made a sketch, we just had like a single object. By adding this line here, though, we made it into kind of like 2 objects because now we have this guy here, which is like a square with a cutoff corner. And then here we have our corner. So when we exit the sketch, it gets really confused because before we just said, hey, extrude this shape that I made. But now when we try to exit it, it's really upset because, well, now we kind of have 2 shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit exit the sketch anyways, basically. So the bottom option. And it'll give me a little what's wrong tab, which is nice because it kind of tells you what's wrong. It says sketch contains an open contour, which in this case just means we have 2 shapes and it only wants 1. And we can close it. Did you get that error and are you kind of back on the blank screen?
Yeah.
Cool. And the reason why it's blank now is because since it doesn't know what to do, it's just choosing to show us nothing. It's like, well, they don't like what we did, so it's just going to get rid of everything. So I kind of showed you how to edit a sketch. Do the same thing with our features. So what we want to do now, and it shows you where our error is. Our sketch is fine. There's no X there. Our issue is in our feature. What we can do is right click on the feature and click edit feature. Right. So, and you kind of get into this menu where you can kind of see our drawing, but then there's this little box on the side. Were you able to get here?
Yeah.
Awesome. And what it's doing is, see how it has this selected contours box? We didn't have to do anything with this before because we just selected the sketch and it just extruded the whole thing. But now that we've made it a little more complicated, it wants us to pick specifically what we're extruding. So all we have to do in this case is just click on what we want to extrude. So just click inside of our little rectangle. And if you just click, it'll kind of glow pink. And if you hit space and then change your view, you can kind of see that that's what it's extruding. You can kind of see our preview of it. But maybe if you would wanted to just extrude that little corner piece, we could do that too, where we just ignore this whole piece and just only extrude the triangle corner. But we're going to extrude the rectangle just out that corner. And you should have something that looks sort of like this. I messed around with some dimensions, so if yours doesn't look the same, but it's the same idea, that's totally fine. Were you able to get here all right?
I believe so. I'm just going to make sure I did.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, you have like this, the object came up and everything, and it's a kind of like a square or rectangle cutoff corner.
yeah.
And yeah, you did everything right. Perfect. Um, so obviously we got thrown an error. SolidWorks got a little upset at us. So in general, that wouldn't have been the best way to do that. Usually if you want to make a rectangle with a cutoff corner, you should make it that way first instead of making the sketch and then extruding it and then adding it. Basically, when you kind of change sketches after you've already made the extrusion, sometimes you can get errors, which is okay, right? As long as you know how to fix them and you kind of know what's going on. Um, but a lot of times it's better to kind of like just think ahead and know what's going to happen. But sometimes you don't, and that's totally fine. So let's look at another way we can cut off a corner. So we'll just cut off another corner now. Let's do this though. We're going to rotate over to a different face. So right now so I'm at least looking at the top right now. I'm going to hit space though, and I'm going to look at the left side. So I'm going to click there. You can look at any side you want though, whatever you want to do. Just hit space and then pick a different view than what you're at right now. And let me know when you're ready.
All right.
Now, what's nice about SolidWorks is they make it very easy to make more sketches. So what I can do now is I can click over to my sketch tab again. And if I hit sketch, you're going to notice that before when I hit sketch, it came up with all those like different planes, right? If you remember, but now it doesn't. And the reason why is because now that we've made an object, we have this like rectangle thing. SolidWorks is basically saying, well, you already made an object. Don't you want to just keep drawing on that object and kind of add to it? That's kind of what it's thinking, right? If that makes sense. It's basically like you've already made a thing, so they think we're just going to add to that. So what we can do is, all we have to do is just click on the side of our object that we want to draw on. And you've noticed that now we're in a sketch. And now I'm drawing on this face. Were you able to get there? Basically, all I did was I just hit sketch, and I clicked on the
Yeah.
draw on. We're all good?
Yes.
Awesome. And you don't have to follow along for this, but if you wanted to just watch, the other thing you could do is if you wanted to, maybe you did want to still draw on our planes. What you could either do is you could either click on the plane first and then hit sketch, and it'll start sketching on that. This other thing you can do is if we hit sketch, notice our little feature tree's gone now, which kind of stinks because we can't select this stuff that's in it. But notice over here we have a little drop down, and if we click it, our feature tree's back. So now we can click on our front plane, our top plane, our right plane, if we want to keep drawing on those instead of our objects, because maybe you do, you never know. But for now, we'll just do our sketch on the side of our objects. And we want to just cut off another corner. So I'll kind of leave it up to you on how you want to do it. You can, so I'm just going to still draw my line. And I guess just to give you an idea of what we're doing here, to cut off the corner, now we're going to use a different tool called cut extrude. So basically I'm going to make a shape on our square, and it's just going to cut that shape off of it. So in our case, since we're trying to cut off a corner, our shape would look something like a triangle. So I'm going to draw first my diagonal line, and then I'm going to, oh, why did it do that? That's interesting. We're going to first draw that line, and then we're going to connect from one of the corners of our triangle to, why does it keep making it work? And we're just going to connect that over to the corner of our square, and then go back down to the bottom corner of our triangle. So we should just have a triangle now, and we want to make sure that it's kind of like fully encapsulating the corner of our rectangle, I guess you could say. Were you able to get here all right?
Let me do that real quick.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, for some reason, it kept trying to change my alignment to an arc, which is interesting. I've never had that happen before.
The triangle's on the same sketch, right?
We made a second sketch.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. So just hit the sketch button and then click any face of the object you want. I chose a different face, but if you want to do the same one, you can. It's completely up to you. And then let me know once you kind of have a triangle on your sketch, and yeah, just let me know. We can kind of pick up from there.
Yeah, so the triangle should be 2 black lines and 1 blue line.
Yep. And the reason why 2 of them are black is because we kind of told them where they had to be. We basically set it so that it had to be along this corner of our rectangle, which is what we want. Yeah. So now all we need to do is kind of define this line here. And you can do it however you want. Maybe you dimension the height and the width. Maybe you set the length and give it an angle. Dimension it however you want. Yeah, you don't have to. I'm probably just going to dimension the height and the width this time instead of doing an angle, but you can do it however you want, whatever you want to do. And whatever dimensions you want to do as well. Probably just going to do. Let me know once you have a triangle that's fully defined. Should all black lines and it should say fully defined at the bottom.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now what we're going to do, remember how before we did boss extrude?
Yeah.
So now same thing as before. We can either do this next step while we're still in the sketch, or we can leave the sketch and then do it. I'm going to do it while I'm still in the sketch, but if you've already left the sketch, that's totally fine too. You're still in the sketch, I assume?
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll just do it while we're still in the sketch. Might as well. So we're going to click over to our features tab. And notice there's a nice big old option right here that says extruded cut.
Okay.
You see it? Cool. So all we're going to do is we're just going to click on it. And notice it's automatically selected our triangle for it. And then the other thing we could do is remember how I said, we have selected contours. Sometimes when you're making a bunch of cuts, like say we made 3 holes, you might have to select all of them. But when you give it just one shape, it usually auto selects it. But if it doesn't, you'll just have to click in your selected contours box and just click inside the shape you want. But we don't have to worry about that here. Were you able to get to the cut extrude tab? You have something that looks a little bit like this.
I didn't get that exact angle when I did the cut extrude.
Oh, that's your triangle looks different, I assume.
Oh yeah, that's probably.
Totally fine. I mean, I just threw in some random dimensions. They're gonna look different. I kind of told you just have fun with it. But
Yeah.
what we're gonna do here is with cut extrude, we're gonna mess around a little bit more. Remember how I said we could do blind as one of our options for like extrudes with our boss extrude?
Yeah.
And we still have that here. Notice we said blind 2 inches. And because our object's only 2 inches deep, or at least where I selected it, it's going all the way through. But if I wanted to, I could change this distance. I could change it to maybe just 1 inch. And notice now, look, it's only going to cut halfway through my object. Does that make sense? So you can change how deep you want your cut to go. You kind of following?
Yeah.
Awesome. The other thing you can do is if we click this drop down next to blind, when you're doing cuts, it has this really nice feature called through all, which I love. Basically, it just says, we're going to take this thing you made and we're just going to cut through everything. Anything that, in its path, it just cuts right through it. And if we click through all, look at that, just cuts straight through the object. It doesn't care. It doesn't ask me for distance. It just says we're going to cut until there's nothing left in that direction, which is a really useful feature. Like if you're ever trying to like make holes in something and you're like, well, I forget how thick I made this piece. I want them to go through. You can just click through all and it sends the cuts right through it all. And if you want it to go in both directions, because see how there's this little arrow guy, that's kind of telling you what direction it's going. If you wanted your cut to go in both directions, you could do through all both, and that would kind of cut through anything that would be on this side too. But we don't have anything on that side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select through all because I want it to cut all the way through my object, but I don't want to have to give it a dimension. Are we all good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I'm just going to hit check to confirm it. And now I have a doesn't really look like a square anymore or any type of cube. And we're just going to do two more things to it, I think. So are you all ready?
Yeah.
Cool. So on one of our little angled faces that we made, you might have to hit your space bar to kind of navigate to one. A really nice feature is if you hit space, in this top little corner up here, you'll see a little cube, kind of like top right corner of that little menu that pops up. And it says isometric if you hover over it. And if you click on it, it gives you like a nice angled view of your object. I really like it because it kind of gives you an idea of what's kind of going on a lot of the sides. Because you could usually see at least 3 sides of the object from it. Were you able to do that?
Yeah.
I love isometric. A lot of times, like when I'm designing something, my boss will want like a picture of it. So what I'll usually do is I'll click isometric and then I'll take a screenshot because it's just a really good way of getting your whole object there, and it usually looks pretty nice. If you want a view to look at something with, isometric is like 99 times the best time, or 99% of the time the best way to do it. So let's click on, do you have like an angled face like from one of the cutoff corners?
Yeah.
Like, so you have this guy here. Let's do a drawing on that one, right? Because now we've made like a totally different angle. So I'm going to click on that face, click over to the sketch tab, and then make a new sketch. So we're going to do a drawing now on an angled piece. And just so you know, on my computer, it doesn't automatically rotate it to face that plane, but I know on some computers it does. If it does for you, that's great. I'm actually a little jealous, but it doesn't do that for me. So
Yeah, it just did for me. So now
it
it's
did.
facing that way, highlighted blue.
Yeah, if it doesn't, what you can do is, remember how you saw that normal to option in your sketch?
Mhm.
If you click that, it'll just make you face directly where you're drawing, which I just did to make it easier to draw. But yeah, so you're in a sketch, you're kind of ready to do some more sketching?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do something, let's maybe cut a hole through this. We can do that. So let's make a circle, and I'm just going to put it smack dab in the middle of our object. And with the circle, you place your center point, and then you kind of drag it out and click again to kind of define how wide you want it to be. Were you able to do that all right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to need to define our circle now. So when you're defining a circle, you would need to define where the center point is, kind of like where its location is. And then you're going to need to give it a diameter. So first I'm going to give it a diameter. You could do that by clicking on the outer ring of the circle. And I'm just going to put mine to be 0.5, but you can do whatever you want. 0.5 looks reasonable to me. And then with smart dimension again, now what we're going to do is, remember I said you could use it to define distances between two things? That's going to be really useful here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the center point, click that, and then I'm going to click the top line of my little face here, which is here, and I get a dimension. I can click that down to set it, and I'm going to make that, or I might make that 0.5 as well. Are you following so far? I'm going a little quick, so I'm sorry if
Yeah.
you're following along.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And we're just going to dimension now. And one thing that's really nice about SolidWorks that I kind of like, see how it's still like it's not fully dimensioned yet. It's all blue. What you can kind of do
Yeah.
is if you just click on it and you try to drag it places, you can kind of see what's wrong with it. Like in this case, I can't make it get any bigger. I can't move it up and down. It only wants to go side to side. So that tells me, well, I need to dimension it somehow that's going to keep it from going side to side. So if you're ever like, oh man, this thing's still not fully defined, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just click on it and drag it around and see where it's moving. Like, oh, okay, that's the thing I need to lock down. So in this case, I need to keep it from going side to side. So I'm going to add a dimension here. I'm going to make that 1 inch. And now it's fully defined. We good? And if not, just let me know. Doing okay?
Yeah.
All right. You ready to go to the next step?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now, we're going to click over to features again. I'm going to do another cut here. And just so you know, we could do an extrude as well. Like when we're sketching on an object here, like obviously your first thing you do, like when you make your first sketch, you have to extrude it because there's nothing to cut. But once we're like on an object, you can do either with your sketches. So if I wanted to, I could click over to extrude and notice that would kind of make like a peg coming out of my object, right? I don't know if you're looking at my screen, but you can kind of
Yeah.
got a peg coming out of our object. Or I can cancel out of that and I can do a cut instead. And now I have a hole going into my object. And it's really whatever you'd like to do. Do you have a preference? You want to do a cut or a extrude on this one?
I'll do a cut.
Cut. All right. And then what we can do here is we could say, do we want it to go through everything? The last couple we did went through everything. So I think this one I'm going to have it just go 1 inch deep. And there we go. Now we've made a weird looking shape and it has a little hole in it. Yeah. And now that I've done all that, I'm just going to hit save up on top. Just so you know, it doesn't really let you save if you're still in a sketch. So once you finish up with your sketch and your cut, you can just hit save up on top. I usually try to do that like once every 1 or 2 things I add to it. Just that way, if something happens and I lose everything, at least I didn't lose a whole hours of work. Maybe it was only like 10, 15 minutes, but probably should save more than I do, but yeah. And a lot of times SolidWorks will give you a little pop-up saying, oh, you haven't saved for 20 minutes. You should probably save. And I usually listen, but yeah. Let me know when you're all set.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're all good? Awesome. Honestly, I think that's really all of the basics that I would kind of wanted to show. So basically all we did was we kind of covered how to sketch. We did a little bit of how to work with lines, how to work with rectangles, how to do circles. And we did the basics of boss extrude and cut extrude. Did you have any questions on any of it?
I have no questions.
Awesome. Well, in that case, we have a challenge. So see this little shape here? I'm sharing my screen. You got a cool little view of it. I stole it from one. I didn't make this myself. I could make it. I'm very good at SolidWorks. But see this crazy looking guy?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, you could make it. Because ultimately, all it is extrudes, right? So
Yeah.
you'll notice with and cuts, right? When you do SolidWorks, a lot of times the hardest thing is figuring out how to make an object. Like, what steps am I doing? Am I doing an extrude first? What am I extruding? Then what am I cutting? It's really tricky, and it kind of takes some practice. So obviously this isn't school. I can't give you homework, but if you'd like to screenshot this, I'll also be sending it in Slack. And what I'm planning on doing is just try making it. Like, try your best. All the dimensions that you should need are on there. So just, give it kind of like a shot. See if you're able to make it. It definitely will be a bit harder than the block we were making, because with that was kind of, follow along, but this will be all the same tools. So all you need are rectangles, lines, and then boss extrude and cut extrude. But give it a shot. I don't know. Do you want me to give you any hints before you try? What I plan on doing is I'm going to do, as soon as this meeting's over, I'm going to do a walkthrough of how to make it, record it, and then I'll probably just send it to Slack as well, so people can kind of have like an answer key of how to make it. But did you want any hints to try to get you started? Obviously, or if you just don't want to do it, I can't make you.
Actually, I think I may know how to start it.
Awesome. Yeah, give it a shot. And if you want, you can just shoot me a message over Slack if you want help or anything. And yeah, kind of just want to really fully reiterate, this isn't homework. It's not a school class, but this is really just SolidWorks is, and CAD in general, it's, if you practice it, you're going to get better at it. So I figured I'd like to give people opportunities to do that. But that's really all I had for today. Yeah, I'm going to just stop recording.